I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Think of this, so let's start with Commissioner Carberry. Is in Cancun. Commissioner Jones. He's at a church event. Commissioner Barisi, or Chair Barisi is, has a family event. Now we'll get to those that are here. Commissioner Layton. Here. Commissioner Irons.
Here.
Commissioner Tenike.
Here.
Commissioner Connell.
Here.
All right, we do have a quorum.
Okay, has everybody had a chance to read last meeting's minutes?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I'll accept a motion.
I move to approve the minutes for June 26, 2025.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Jennifer and a second by Mike. Is there any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Layton.
Yes.
Commissioner Tenike.
Yes.
Commissioner Connell.
Here.
Commissioner Irons.
Yes.
Minutes are approved as presented.
Okay, we're gonna move into public hearings. Public hearing on amendment 25-000299 is called to order.
229.
Oh,
Oh, is it different in
229.
different places? Oh, it's different in different places. I think it's 229. 229.
229?
I think it's 229.
Okay, so
29.
I have 299
On the agenda.
Yeah.
Well, in my staff report, I've got 229. Okay. Well, we'll resolve that. We'll resolve it before it gets to city council.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
public hearing on amendment 25-0002 TBD is called to order. City of Boardman is the applicant. This request is to amend chapter 2, land use districts, 1.2, chapter definitions, 2.1 residential, 2.2 commercial, 2.3 general industrial, 2.4 light industrial, and chapter 4.4 conditional use permits for the Boardman Development Code to establish standards for the use of shipping containers in the residential, commercial, and industrial use zones. Criteria for approval are found at the BDC chapter 4.7 land use district map and text amendments. It is being processed as a type 4 decision with the final hearing before the city council. The public hearing this evening will be conducted as follows: staff report, public testimony in the following order. Staff may provide additional information, any testimony in support of the application, any testimony opposing the application, any neutral testimony, and then the applicant's rebuttal if there is any. We will then close the public testimony. After the record is closed for testimony, no other testimony will be heard from anyone unless the planning commission has a specific question. The planning commission may ask questions of staff, after which the planning commission will discuss the matter. The planning commission may make a final decision tonight that would result in a recommendation to the city council, or the matter may be continued to a time and date certain in the future. If the matter is continued, this will be the only notice of that time and date you will receive. Testimony: if you wish to speak, please fill out a testimony form and submit it to the planner. I will recognize those people wishing to speak. Any questions should be addressed through me. Please state both your name and address for the record when you come to the podium, as the hearing is being recorded. Please keep testimony concise and to the point. Testimony should be on the action under consideration and address the substantive criteria. The criteria that apply to the decision are listed in the staff report. Testimony on other issues will be rejected and not considered by the planning commission. Failure to raise an issue in sufficient detail to allow the planning commission and the parties the ability to respond to the issue prohibits an appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Similarly, failure to raise constitutional or other issues regarding any conditions of approval in sufficient detail to allow the planning commission to respond to the issue prohibits a lawsuit in circuit court on that basis. Now I ask the members of the planning commission to disclose any ex parte contacts, bias, or conflicts of interest. Please indicate the nature and extent of the ex parte contact, bias, or conflict of interest, and indicate whether you intend to participate in or abstain from the hearing.
Okay, I have been a big advocate for this. I will be voting, but this is, I have nothing to gain for this. I have no financial gain for this. I want it for my personal use and for everybody else. So I just want everybody to know that I stand nothing to gain other than being able to do it like everybody else.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Anybody else? Hearing none, does anyone in the audience wish to challenge a planning commissioner's impartiality? Hearing none, planning official Carla McLean will now present the staff report.
All right, thank you, Vice Chair Irons. So, rather than kind of go through the staff report, I think it's best if I just maybe provide some background and then we can go into the actual proposed text changes and I'll walk you through those. And if there's any questions about the substantive criteria, we can certainly come back to them if we need to. I've also asked Glenn McIntyre, who is our building official, to be here tonight. So if there are any building official questions, he would be participating as a member of the staff. So a little history. This has been a conversation that has been going on for longer than I really care to think about in some respects. Not long after starting part-time at the city of Boardman some 3+ years ago, there was a question about the use of shipping containers in residential areas and whether or not we should enforce. There wasn't any real clear there was nothing in the development code, there was nothing in the municipal code, there wasn't really anything to work from other than this kind of history that was shared with me that said, well, we've kind of let shipping containers be put in industrial and commercial zones for storage, but we've never really allowed them in residential zones, and we'll just kind of leave it at that. After inquiries from 2 members of the community, both Ms. Navarro, who has Cafe Cultura, and Jennifer and Dino Layton, who wanted to do this for personal reasons, we engaged a conversation with the city council around policy. We initially got some policy that said, well, yeah, we probably need to clean them up a little bit. They kind of look a little scraggly when they're certainly in the commercial area. We need to encourage people to paint them, but we really didn't move the needle relative to seeing their use be more defined and expanded. Over the next several months, both Ms. Navarro and Mr. and Mrs. Layton came before the city council advocating for the use of shipping containers for different uses, for different kinds of applications. We finally got some movement from the city council several months ago, kind of from the policy perspective, and that's why we're here tonight. The final presentation that I shared with them included some approval criteria from a couple of different jurisdictions. The one that kind of rose to the top was Klamath Falls, because Klamath Falls would allow, through a public hearing process, the use of a shipping container more broadly. And there seems to still be some real concern about how shipping containers kind of will be used. What will they look like? What will what will they look like? I mean, I think in the end, I think that's kind of the question. What does the final product look like, and how do we manage it so that we don't have shipping containers in town that are old and rusty and falling apart and painted and tagged and all of those other things. So I'm hoping that through this, we've kind of created the criteria in such a way that we can address the concerns that have been raised. So I would direct you to the attachment to the packet. And did you have a packet? If you want a paper one, there's a couple of extras over there on that desk. Yeah. So, on page 7, the number in the block, page 7 of the full packet, starts the definition. So we added 4 definitions so that we could really understand what we're adding, how we're adding it, and how it will be used. So there's 2 definitions that define what the space is used for. So one of the definitions is habitable space, and the other definition is occupiable space. Now, we are not off, both definitions are in here, and that's really to create that delineation between what they mean. But to be clear, we are not authorizing the use of a shipping container to be used for habitable space. That was a real clear kind of red line for the city council. They're not ready to see these be used as conversion to a dwelling unit. So it's defined in there as habitable space, but again, just to be clear, that is, none of the authorizations as this is currently written would allow a shipping container to be converted into a home or a space to live in. Occupiable space is space that is designed for regular or non-regular human occupancy, but it includes spaces where people congregate for activities, work, or educational purposes, and that are equipped with the necessary life safety features like egress, heat, light, and ventilation. It specifically excludes spaces primarily intended for other purposes, such as storage or equipment rooms. And when you look at the difference, the habitable space is a structure designed for living, sleeping, eating, or cooking. So that's where you live. The other space is where you work. Then we also define shipping container and shipping container reuse. So that there would be no, we're gonna create these and we just wanna be really clear about what a shipping container is, what its reuse means, or how that happens. Then, in the next 4 parts of this is the language we added to each of the use zones for residential, commercial, industrial, and light industrial, general industrial, and light industrial use. So the page 10 is where we begin to see the insertion of where we did this relative to how you would approve it in a residential zone. So again, in a residential zone, it would be for storage only. 2 changes here. The first one under design requirements. We took advantage of this opportunity to also better define what an accessory structure is. It's a little wonky, so we just took this opportunity. If we're gonna be in the code, let's clean this up. So again, the accessory structure shall be in color, material, and appearance similar to the primary structure. One of the things that we had problems with is that previously it was stated that it would be of a compatible and complementary nature to the primary structure, and then be consistent with the detailed design criteria identified. What we had a lot of conversation about amongst ourselves and including the building official and our building inspector was, what does that mean? What's compatible and complementary? We didn't have, it's not defined in the code. So it's like, how have we applied that standard all these years? Because we don't know what the standard is. So we removed that and just simply said that it shall be in color, material, and appearance similar to the primary structure. So color, painted the same. Material, we can work with folks on material, and appearance similar to. So again, I think some of the conversation, think about that. We then went on and tried to be more specific about structures that are up to 200 square feet at least one design criterion will be used, accessory structures 201 to 400 square feet. 3 design criteria will be used, and accessory structures 401 to 1200 square feet, 5 design criteria will be used. It used to be we only applied that to accessory structures up to 200 feet, but our code allows for accessory structures up to 1200 feet. So it was like, well, why have we not, why are we ignoring what happens between 200 square feet and 1200 square feet? So again, we took advantage of this being open to be a little more clear. So then shipping containers, a whole new paragraph, can be placed on residentially zoned property only as an accessory structure, not for use as an occupiable or habitable structure. They shall be sited behind a fence and within a backyard as to be not visible from the street. The double swing doors shall be oriented towards the front yard and corner side. If on a corner lot, they shall meet the design requirements outlined above. As an alternative path for an approval, an applicant may request discretionary review using the type 2 decision process should the proposed unit not conform with the requirements here and elsewhere within the development code. So what we said is if you're willing to meet the standard that's just above about being in color, material, and appearance similar to, then your alternative is to say, I want to apply through the type 2 process, which if you meet the standard, then it's a development review permit. If staff reviews it, staff issues it. If you can't meet those design criteria, or you want to do something a little bit different, then we would take it through a type 2 process. Adjoining property owners would be noticed available. A comment would be solicited, and then the decision would be rendered based on the criteria and the comment that would be received. So we're just elevating that opportunity for comment in that case. The other thing we clearly delineated, and because we keep having this problem too, is we said that accessory structures over 200 square feet will be required to obtain a building permit. We're just having problems with people coming in, putting in sheds or shops greater than that 200 square feet and not going through the building permit process. So it's required, but we're just kind of reinforcing that within the code. So that's the residential component. So again, not occupiable, not habitable, but eligible for storage. And again, if it's up to 200 square feet, no building permit required. Once it's over 200 square feet, it will still, even though we know we're gonna hear folks that are gonna come and say, but I'm not putting it on a foundation, I'm not doing all of these things. But as a structure, as defined by our code, once it's over 200 square feet, you have to go through that building permit process. And again, we've had a lot of conversation, and at some point in time, I'll let Glenn get 2 words in edgewise here, and he could talk a little bit about what that building permit process might look like. The residential zone probably has the most design process and has the most stuff in it. It was a little easier to incorporate this into the commercial and the 2 industrial zones. And while all 3 versions are in here, they're, with the exception of a word or 2, they're the same language. So again, shipping containers can be used in the commercial use zones as either a primary or secondary structure when meeting the following requirements and following prescribed siting procedures. So 1, as an accessory structure for storage purposes, they shall be painted a color complementary to the primary structure and shall have all container markings removed or covered. Damaged or rusty containers shall not be permitted. A building permit is required, and the unit shall not be occupiable or habitable. And then secondary to that, as a primary or accessory structure to be occupiable, shipping containers are permitted through the conditional use permit processes outlined in chapter 4.4 conditional use permits, specifically the shipping containers as occupiable structure language we added to that. So that same language then gets replicated in the 2.3, I think is general industrial, and then, well, that's odd. There's a page in here, I don't know what page 14 is.
I have 14.
Yeah. Oh, that was that, okay, that was where we tried to figure out what I don't think I meant for that to be in here, but that's okay that it is, cause it's kind of interesting. We might remove that for the next hearing. So then we've got shipping containers again for the for the light industrial and then the general industrial in here. And I think I probably have that same typographical error in both of them. So we will fix that in both of them. Shipping containers, okay. So then the last section, that we have identified. This is in a weird order, it's 18, yeah, anyway, page 18. Is F, shipping containers as occupiable structures. So these are specific standards, so the general we actually opted to not have the general conditional use permit standards applicable. There's a whole thing in here about conditions of approval for a conditional use. And why this is different is because this is the use of a building material, it's not the use. So usually when we do a conditional use permit, we're looking at what the use is and what the impacts are from the use. And so that's why we apply those things about limiting the hours and days and place, or reviewing for compatibility, or requiring larger setbacks, doing landscaping or screening or drainage. We're not reviewing a use in this specific case. We're reviewing the use of a shipping container. We're reviewing the use of a type of building material. So we said, we're gonna apply just these 4 criteria. And those 4 criteria are that shipping containers can only be repurposed as an occupiable structure in the commercial or industrial use zones. As an occupiable structure, they can be cited as either a primary or secondary structure. So since Ms. Navarro is here, I'll just explain. In her situation where the Cafe Cultura is kind of the accessory structure, it's not the primary structure was the bank and then the cafe. Her structure is the accessory structure, but there could be an instance where the shipping container or shipping containers that are being put together could be the primary structure on the property. So we're not limiting it to being either primary or accessory, it could be either. All siding standards of the underlying use zone are applicable. So if it's in the commercial zone and there are setbacks around, if there are requirements around setback or any of those other kind of siding standards are still gonna be applicable. They're not going away. And then the occupiable structure, regardless of square footage, will require a building permit from the building official and the submittal of engineered plans. And as much as you'd like to ding us for those requirements, that's really a building codes division requirement. When you start using alternative building materials, it has to be engineered and you have to show how you're gonna. And I won't say a whole lot, but you have to show how you're gonna connect it to the ground, how you're gonna connect the services, how you're gonna wire it, how you're gonna plumb it, whatever you may need to do with it. You have to show that in an engineered form like you would for the construction of any type of building. So, I'm gonna stop there and ask Glenn if he would want to add anything to what I have said to this point.
Hi there, can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes,
So, if you're gonna occupy something that's an alternative material, it has to be evaluated by an engineer. And especially if you start putting holes in it, doors and windows, that's all gotta be evaluated and determined how this structure is going to be constructed to withstand the loads upon it. Seismic load, wind load, snow load, all those loads have to be transferred to the earth somehow, and it has to be anchored to the earth. So that's a shipping container is outside of the prescriptive code, so therefore it has to be designed. A single container used in a residential area for storage with no alterations, that would not need to be engineered. That's just doable. That's really it in a nutshell. There's not much more to it.
yeah, the one piece that I would add to that is that it only takes just putting in a hole to put a vent in that storage container that you're going to put in the residential zone. If it's larger than a certain size, you will trigger that engineering requirement.
It's
So-
8 inches.
8
Any
inches,
hole- Yeah, any hole greater than 8 inches requires an engineer evaluation.
yeah. So it'll be an interesting conversation when we start having people wanting to do things with a storage container in a residential zone, because it's like, well, we want to put a people door in. Well, now you've just changed the equation. I mean, we can still get you to yes, but you've just added an engineering requirement and you've just added a building permit requirement. So we'll end up putting together, I'm sure, some kind of information fact sheet to help people get to permit their storage containers correctly. But the engineering component of this conversation has been really enlightening and really, really interesting to begin to understand. It doesn't take you punching a very big hole in a shipping container before you have potentially impacted the integrity of it from an engineering perspective. So, yeah. I think that will conclude my staff report. I'm happy to entertain questions from the commission. Again, the city is the applicant, so we're also providing the staff report. So for the most part, what I presented is not only the staff report, but it would also be the city's presentation of our application. So I'm happy to entertain any questions the commission members might have before you move into the public comment part of the public hearing.
So a 20-foot container is about 8.5 feet wide. That's roughly 160 square feet. Is there any limitations to how many one property or one person can have, or because if you're not gonna alter the container, right? So about stacking containers. So if somebody wanted to stack containers, right, you'd have 2 containers stacked on top of each other and maybe a staircase or something accessing that second container. Is that something that's going to be allowed, or has there been any thought?
Well, I would say that if you're doing something in the industrial or commercial zones and it's gonna be engineered, it would be engineered. So all those considerations, I think, could be allowable. I think on residential property, that's a really good question. The way the code is written, we do allow accessory uses and structures, plural. Although most people don't have enough space to put a lot of structures on their property. But that's a good question. Would we choose to limit the number of accessory structures and by extension then the number of shipping containers? We didn't have that conversation at the staff level. So you raise a really good question. Glenn, what would your comment be around stacking of shipping containers?
As far as the building code goes, that would trigger the engineering component, because I mean, they have to be able to withstand the loads, and then as soon as you stack them, are those clips enough? I don't know. That's something that somebody's gonna have to determine. And as far as stacking them, I think that our ordinance talks about an accessory structure cannot be taller than the primary structure.
Right.
That might be something to think about.
So if you have a 2-story house, you could potentially stack 2 containers.
You could potentially
Yes,
have a
sir.
2-story container structure, yeah. But you, as Glenn said, it would trigger engineering and a building permit, yeah.
Now, would they let them be side by side, or do they go the same standard as another, like the storage sheds that have to be so far apart? Because they're now metal, do they have to have the same clearance as a normal storage shed, or can they stack them side by side?
That's a good question too. So the reason we have separation is for live fire siding standards.
Right.
So Glenn, I'm gonna throw that one your way too, because these would have a metal shell. Would that impact the fire safety component and allow you to put them adjacent to each other?
So if you connected them, they would be one structure. So that's a non-issue. But if you're gonna have them side by side, you would have to have them 10 feet apart, or determine that anything less than 5 feet from a line, just draw an imaginary line, anything closer than 5 feet has to be fire rated. And can't, any openings are not allowed. So the steel side of a container, I would say is fire rated, but the building code looks at an assembly, like a UL listed assembly. So somebody would have to determine that. I don't know if it's been evaluated by a testing company or a laboratory. That's something that would be on the people installing this to determine and to show that it meets the fire rated requirements.
They would still have to meet the setback, as any other accessory structure, they would still have to meet the distance, the setbacks, the property line setbacks, and the distance from the primary structure.
Right.
But you raise a good question about could you get two of them and put them next to each other? Clearly, as Glenn said, if you cut them and hooked them together, that would require engineering and a building permit. But if you just set them next to each other, yes, then I think we have to look at that fire rating component relative to that, because they will be treated as structures.
Right.
And that's-
Somebody's gonna try to put it
Side by side, yep.
That's regardless of where they're at, residential, commercial, light industrial, regardless, they need that spacing.
Yeah, that's across the board.
Hey, what if said containers are already in that position? Do they need to be separated now that this thing is?
If they are set exactly next to each other and for all intents and purposes touching, that would
Yeah.
be considered one structure.
Right, they're not connected though, not mechanically connected, they're just sitting next to each other.
Yeah, that would be acceptable.
So that's fine,
Yeah, that's okay.
but that's without the 5 foot between them.
Well,
Correct.
you look at it like this: if you added a room to your house, or you set a shed right next to your house, they're for all intents and purposes one structure.
Right.
The separation is to eliminate or slow down the propagation of fire. So if they're side by side, you could look at it as just one structure.
Okay.
Alright.
Thank you.
Okay. I thought I read, and I can't find it right now, I apologize, that we had to have a fence around it, an internal fence.
No,
Have to be behind a fence.
it had to be behind a fence. In the residential zone, it has to be behind a fence.
Oh, okay, that's all. Okay.
Right, so it says here, they shall be sited behind a fence and within a backyard is to not be visible from the street. The double swing doors shall not be oriented towards the front yard.
Right.
Side, if on a corner lot, they shall meet the design requirements outlined above. Yeah,
On page 8, the occupiable space.
yeah,
And I'm just asking because I can't, what's a non-regular human? What's a non-regular human?
that's a good question, that's the internet. So, I borrowed from the internet there. A room or enclosed space designed for regular or non-regular human occupancy. I guess that would be, regular would be Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, non-regular would be as needed. Maybe there could be written
Oh, it's
better.
based on hours? Hours
No,
of
I mean,
occupancy?
Hours would be an example, it could mean any number of different,
Should we define non-regular human occupancy somewhere?
Well, can't we just take out the words non-regular human and just leave it for regular occupancy?
Yeah, but if it's based on some kind of hours,
no, it's not based on hours, I mean, it's just, it's an enclosed space designed for human occupancy. I mean, we could probably take out regular or non-regular, it's just a space designed for human occupancy.
well, and I don't care, it can stay there. I just had wondered what the discussion was around it. And so that I knew what non-regular human was, you know? So that was all. I mean, it's fine with me if it stays. It's just seems wonky, and I was more interested in what it was, not.
Yeah, yeah. So again, I just, you just use Google and it likes to give you AI answers now. So that really just came from that that search. So I would not be opposed to removing the or non-regular. I mean, I think that it could become confusing, and just like we had issues with the what is compatible and what was it, compatible and complementary, what's non-regular, so maybe it's just better if it is removed.
Hey, could we go back to the fence for a second? The making sure that it's not visible from the street.
Yes.
If we have to put a fence, if somebody has to put a fence around one of these, then they have to come get a variance because it's going to be more than a 6-foot fence because they're taller than 6 feet, the majority of them. So they got to put an 8-foot fence up.
No, the intent was not to require it to not be visible in any way, shape, or form. It was more of a way to just diminish the visual impacts. And again, that's certainly something you all can talk about. Do you think it should be behind a fence? Again, these are the things we talked about as staff. And, looked at how some other communities had done it.
Well, 'cause how do you require somebody to put in a fence on their property if they don't already have a fence there? In order to.
Right. So if let's say it's down the side of my house, for example, where I have all that space down the side, if it's painted the same as the primary structure, which is my house, and it's painted, I still have to make it somewhat non-visible.
Yeah, I think the objective was to not, and that goes back to it needs to be painted, it needs to be, the markings need to not be visible. All of
I
those
get all
things
that.
I think are our attempt to say, let's make this as benign as we can in the residential neighborhood. Like that was our intent and how we drafted this. So I don't disagree. There could be a lot where, there's a place where you want to put this where you don't want to fence it. That was part of the reasoning as well when we said orient the double swing doors away from the street. So, when you're there and you've got your double swing doors, the people driving by are not visibly interacting with what you're doing in your storage container.
Right.
So, I mean, again, I'm open to this conversation about should there be a fencing requirement? If not a fencing requirement, should there be a standard about visibility? And maybe if we check the other boxes, maybe the visibility is not as critical or crucial.
Well, and if it's painted and landscaped like the rest of the property, assuming the rest of the property is landscaped and painted, I can give examples in Arlington of ones that you don't even notice that they're there because they're painted well and landscaped and they're just part of the property and you don't even notice them.
Right. Well, it's the same thing.
What I'm trying to avoid is besides the cost of the containers and the paint and all of that, happen to put up fences or whatever to meet the requirements. Because I think you can incorporate them to where they're not an eyesore. Obviously, is what we're looking to not do, and well, anyway, that's just my opinion.
I will tell you that as a planner, I really try to get to the point where we have clear and objective standards and we can check a box. So when we say something about behind a fence, we can check the box. When we can say not visible, I lost my point here. Within a backyard, that's a box I can check. Not visible from the street, that's a little harder, but we can predominantly say, yeah, the way you're gonna cite that, it's not gonna be visible from people driving up and down Columbia Avenue. So I would look for those standards to be things, again, that from the perspective of when we're reviewing it to approve it, they meet the standard or they don't. If we are if we are applying a lot of discretion, then we should not be making that decision. That decision should be at a minimum, a type 2 decision for adjoining property owners to be able to make comment. So those are the things that I would be looking for. I mean, I'm open to change. We threw words on a page. You guys are the first group that gets to vet this, so I'm open to suggestions.
Right,
Got it,
making,
thank you.
you know, put a fence around, you're making them fence their property, well, they don't want their property fenced. I mean, that's adding, now they have to get a fence permit, now they have to put in the money to put a fence in, you know, and if it's in their backyard or towards the back of their house, I get it, they're trying to hide it, but why would they, you know, they can't afford, you know, maybe they can't afford to put a fence around it, or they don't want to put a fence around it.
Yeah, no, I'm open to removing that fencing requirement. Again, I'm just looking for something that's clear and objective. So when Aurelia reviewing the permit, she can go, yep, yep, here's your permit.
Right.
So, but removing that fencing, again, this is draft. That's why
Right.
we're having the conversation. So I'm very open to making that change. I mean, we could say they shall be sited within a backyard as to not be visible from the street. Take out the fence requirement.
I think, you know, because you're forcing somebody to make changes to their property they don't want, because what if they don't want a fence? You know, not everybody wants a fence around their yard.
Yep.
So.
Okay. Do we have some consensus around take the fence requirement out? Okay, we're really getting into deliberation. We probably need to get to the public hearing part of this as well, but any other questions of staff?
Well, so maybe this should be later, I don't know. In, page 10, we have the design, F, 3. And, little a, the accessory structure shall be in color, material, and appearance similar to the primary structure. What are shipping containers? Those are metal, right?
Right, and that's kind of why we have the second, that's why we have B, because accessory structures, that's the hickory shed, that's the shop you build from Cleary, that's the, you know, that's the more traditional accessory structure. So again, you may not always be able to be, we try to figure out what compatible and complementary meant. And we kind of came up with, well, it means what we've always talked about it meaning is it needs to be a similar color, it needs to be a similar material and similar appearance to the primary structure. So again, this is draft language. So if there's something in that list that you think needs to be changed, this would be the time to have that conversation. But the reason there's an A and a B is that A is those other accessory structures. Not that we're not gonna look at shipping containers under that relative to the square footage component, but the rest of the siding standards for shipping containers are embodied in B.
Okay, so there might need to be some kind of, cross, you know, excluding this, but, you know, some of that kind of language in there.
Right,
Yeah.
so somebody comes in and they've got
Yeah.
a shipping container and A tells us that it has to be in color, material and appearance similar to the primary structure. Well, we know it's not going to be.
Yeah.
Because material, it's not gonna be the same material, but it can certainly be painted the same color or a complementary color. And it can be placed in such a way that the appearance is diminished or the appearance could be made to be similar. So, and again, that's part of the reason we have the type 2 process below. So if we just don't think we can get there with what they're proposing as just a development review permit and check the boxes, we're gonna put them into a type 2 decision process. We're gonna provide notice to the adjoining property owners, solicit comment. and make the decision based on comment. My guess is we'll never get comment. But I'm also sensitive to, I think, where the city council is at relative to the visual impacts, and that's the piece that I am most attuned to, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you, from that perspective, if you guys see words or things that could be done differently, that might make that easier or more clear, I am open to those.
Hey, Carla,
Yeah,
so when the terminology of similar material, does that mean that if a house has lap siding, the container has to have lap siding put over it?
well, there are some local HOAs who are requiring that. Because they are requiring that. I don't think the city would apply that same level of requirement. I just don't see us doing that. I mean, we've not said you can't use a hickory shed because it's not the same exact kind of material. So again, we would, if somebody were to come in with a hickory shed, we would say, great. We've probably not done a good job historically. I think this is gonna require us to be more consistent in the future, saying, hey, by the way, once you have that hickory shed delivered, you need to paint it so it's in a color comparable or similar to your home. We have not historically done that. But I do know there are HOAs around here who are enforcing upon people who haven't done that and are making them paint it the same color as their structure, their primary structure. Yeah. And then I always say, rely on your code, not on your planner. So again, if something about color, material, and appearance, if we want to refine that, now would be the time to do that, or during deliberation, so.
Is there any other questions of staff from the commission? Okay. Is there any correspondence?
No. Well, I will say I got an email from the folks with the Fair Housing Organization of Oregon. Fair Housing Association of Oregon, and they were concerned about these changes. And I replied back and I said, we're not affecting housing or density with this change. We're allowing people to use shipping containers in the residential zone for storage, and I never heard back. So I'm guessing it just popped up as a change to a residential zone and they sent their form email. And once I replied back and said, we're not impacting housing one way or the other, I didn't hear anything more from them. So no, we didn't receive any correspondence.
Noted.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna move into public testimony. So our applicant has already presented its testimony.
Yes,
Does anybody wish to speak in favor of the application?
we've got one.
Okay.
Yvonne Navarro.
Go and step up to the podium, state your name and address, please.
My name is Yvonne Navarro. I am at 113 Southwest Eagle Drive. I was just wanting to speak a little bit in favor of shipping containers in the commercial use zones. I presented, I want to say about a year ago, to the city council in support of this. As many of you know, I own Cafe Cultura, and shipping containers have just been around Boardman for a long time for, I mean, different reasons, even though they technically were not allowed. They've been around, they've been everywhere, everyone has seen them. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to steer a clear direction of where we want to go with them instead of just seeing them pass by. A lot of big companies like Dutch Bros, Starbucks, even just locals in Hermiston have turned to shipping containers. And I think with as much as Boardman is booming, it's just a great opportunity to kind of steer the way instead of just letting it happen, because it will happen. And especially because there's such a lack of commercial spaces in Boardman, like it's insane. I mean, I'm sure you guys have all seen the food pod, how many food trucks come and go, but there is nowhere for us to actually establish to be permanent. So I think this is a great way to take us there, to be able to promote new businesses coming into town and to be able to keep them here. I do agree with, the thing about the siding. That was one, that you guys were discussing, that I was like, okay, as far as similar material, it's like, okay, so will we not allow simply just painting it? Is that not, basically, what is the bare minimum, because once we roll out with new things, it's like, what is the bare minimum that we can get away with? Cause I would hate for somebody to do the bare minimum and completely ruin it for everybody, like, well, you did not go the extra mile, but not everybody will, So I think that's something that really should be clarified is, okay, what is the bottom line that will pass, but are we gonna be happy with it, But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in favor that wishes to speak? Does anybody wish to speak against the application? Any neutral testimony? Any rebuttal?
No.
Okay. The public testimony portion of the hearing is now closed. Does staff need to respond to any questions or issues raised?
Nope, I think there's a couple of things that I would like to work through with you guys on and making sure that what we put forward to the city council is fully supported by the planning commission. So I think we've identified a couple of maybe things we want to be more clear in the language on. If we can kind of spend the next 10-15 minutes kind of getting some clarity on that, I think we'll be ready to rock and roll and move this forward if you're also inclined.
Okay.
So. And if you're okay, Commissioner Irons, I will just work through the red lines and. I didn't hear any comments about the habitable space, and again, we're not actually creating habitable space, but we're defining it. Maybe at some point in time we'll get there, but at this point in time, that's not something that the council was open to. For the occupiable space, I think it's reasonable to just strike the or non-regular, so it's just regular human occupancy.
Okay.
I think the shipping container reuse are okay. Or in the residential zone, so again, you bought a hickory shed, the accessory structure shall be in color, material, and appearance similar to the primary structure. So this is not the shipping container, this is the other types of accessory structures that have been happening, are gonna continue to happen. Is color and appearance sufficient and we drop the material?
I think so. Because I mean,
I'd hate to stick T111 on the side of the shipping container.
right,
That's
and
what
how
I
do
was-
you make the shipping container look like stucco?
Well, and
Yeah,
again, I mean, this, at this point, this is just the standard accessory structure. We haven't yet got to the shipping container and how we conform that. So this is the hickory shed, this is the Cleary building, these are those other types of accessory structures. Shall be in color and appearance similar to the primary structure.
I feel that the color and appearance similar to the primary structure is fine,
Okay,
and we can drop the material.
okay.
And the fence.
Yeah, right, I haven't gotten to that paragraph yet. I don't know who said that.
Okay.
Yes, fine. Not to that paragraph yet, so, okay. Then there's the design criteria, so accessory structures get larger. Okay, then we get to shipping containers. Again, in a residential zone. So they can only be used, only as an accessory structure, not for use as an occupiable or habitable. They shall be sited, we're gonna scratch behind a fence. So it'll say they shall be sited within a backyard as to be not visible from the street. The double swing doors shall not be oriented towards the front yard and corner side if on a corner lot. They shall meet the design requirements outlined above. Okay, so do we keep that sentence or do we change that sentence to create their own design requirements? So in other words, above, we've said that the accessory structure has to be in color and appearance similar to the primary structure. I would agree, you can get there in color, appearance is difficult. So that means that in that B paragraph, they shall meet the. Do we strike, they shall meet the design requirements outlined above and simply say they shall be painted to again, going back to that, covering the markings, covering the labels, so it doesn't say Sealand or Hangen on it, be painted of a complementary or the same or complementary color. Is that sufficient for the shipping container?
I would think so. I mean, if you have it painted nicely and it doesn't look like a shipping container and it's not, you know, flying all the brand names of all the people, I mean, if you painted it, it's gonna look nice, it's gonna blend in, it's gonna look like it's part of your house. It's not just gonna look like it was just dumped there.
So should they be painted the same color as the primary structure or a compatible color? Sorry, Mike, you kind of broke up. What was that? You're going visual on this. Did you catch that?
Yeah,
You would have picked it.
Try again, Mike.
Try again.
okay.
No, still broken.
Still broken.
I'm in the gorge. Okay, I'll get
Oh,
you in a
it's-
second.
It's better now. Try again.
Okay. Yeah, you got me now?
Yes.
Okay, so comparable or compatible to me is the wording that we should use, in my opinion.
A comparable.
Or compatible, yeah. And then as far as to not be seen from the roadway is kind of a difficult thing to do from a physical standpoint. I mean, I'm using my house as an example, whether I put one up or not, but for it to not be seen from the street, it would have to sit directly behind my house. And even then you'd still see it from the street.
Okay.
So that seems almost impossible in anybody's space unless, especially in the residential areas, that it's not.
Okay,
Road,
so,
as far as not
yeah,
being able to see it, but if it's landscaped and painted and comparable or nicely painted to match the house and everything, I don't think whether somebody sees it from the road or not would really be that big a deal.
okay,
Because otherwise, there's no reason to worry about what it looks like if you can't see it.
true. Okay,
And that goes back to the fence thing too. You know, if there was a fence there, who cares what you do? I mean, it wouldn't matter if it was painted or not.
so what if we took out we took out the fence, if we take out the backyard, what if we said they shall be sited to limit visibility from the street?
That'll work.
That would work.
And then if you had to come and come before us to say, hey, this is the only place I can put this. Let's say I go a step further and I T111 the side of it to make it even a better non-eyesore. Maybe that's something we could look at in the future.
Okay. Right, I mean, somebody could cite it, I mean, it's not an undoable thing, I mean, it could be
Right,
done.
it'd be easy.
The question is once you start doing that, what kind of building review would that trigger? Because
Right.
Yeah, that's the question, so.
You're now changing the fire rating by adding a
you're-
flammable to a non-combustible.
Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
Unless you use tin site.
right.
So then you can't really make that compatible to your house color, because you really can't paint tin siding all that well to make it match your house. Cause then they're
Right.
not
Mhm.
my
Right.
material.
Right.
So, I mean, I'd rather see just the storage shed painted like the house versus trying to go to all the steps of putting on metal siding and this and that, to try to make it match, cause I think that would make it look even more obvious than just painting the storage container.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah, and
here's,
if you had T111 on the side of it, the T111 would burn off and the container would still stand there, as opposed to a house that has T111, the whole thing's burning down.
true, yeah, but it still could trigger a fire rating it still could trigger a fire rating standard, so.
Yeah, and a building standard, because you are drilling into it to mount it to secure them.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Okay, so this is what I have at this point in time. Shipping containers can be placed on residentially zoned property only as an accessory structure, not for use as an occupiable or habitable structure. They shall be sited to limit visibility from the street. The double swing doors shall not be oriented towards the front yard and corner side if on a corner lot. They shall be painted a comparable color to the primary structure and cover all markings and logos. At that point in time, is that mateable? I mean, maybe we don't even need the as an alternative path for approval, an applicant may request, I mean, have we made it pretty simple to install a shipping container, or should we leave the second path in there just because it might be needed?
Better to have it, not need it,
Right,
than
that is-
not have it.
Better to have it and not need it, and a year from now, or when we do another code update, we can say, look, we've never triggered that, maybe we don't need that. Okay, are we comfortable with that?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I am.
Cool. Ragnar, did you have something to
Yeah,
add?
before, and it's probably just me, it's late, and, okay, so we have our F, accessory use and structures. Accessory uses and structures are of a nature customarily incidental and subordinate to the principal use or structure on the same lot, okay? Then we come down to shipping containers. I don't know, it doesn't seem like we're breaking out the shipping container. Why?
Well, yeah, you raise a good question there too. I think because Ragnar, it's just been this process to kind of open the door to allow this as a building material.
Right.
And I just think that the council was looking for a way to make sure that we had really clear requirements for the shipping container.
So in that case, it almost seems like, instead of referencing back to F, maybe, the shipping containers should just be a section unto itself. Or excluding it out, because up at the top, you do the list, detached garages, sheds, workshops, and then we get down to the shipping containers, and I'm like, it says, not for use as an occupiable or habitable structure. Then I go back up to the accessory use or structures. I'm like, well, you can't use those for habitable or occupiable either. I don't know. Just when you look at it, you might, just this whole section gets kind of confusing, I think.
Don't disagree.
Okay.
Don't disagree.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. I'm just making the comment so that,
Yeah.
in a year or two, somebody doesn't go, well, you should have spoken up, Ragnar. So I'm speaking up.
Yeah, no, and in a year or two, we may come back and propose something similar. Hey, we're gonna pull shipping containers out of this section and just make its own section. I mean,
Yeah.
looking at it today, looking at how other communities have kind of addressed this, this was a reasonable place for it to land. Is it the only place? No. Is it the best place? Well, I don't know. it was a place I could make it work.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I'm just, that's all I'm doing is trying to, when it's looked at or revisited, that it's, looked at. And I mostly I didn't look too much at the commercial stuff. But anyway, I'll let you keep moving on.
Okay, so again, in the commercial industrial, it's the same language, so we'll make changes in one place and then, go forward again. So I'm on page 12 and 13. I found the typo, it should be shipping container in the
Yeah.
little two. But I have an arrow here, so one of the things we said for again, commercial industrial, under the first little I, as an accessory structure for storage purposes, they shall be painted a color complementary. If there is no primary structure, they can't be painted complementary. When I read that, I was like, well, wait a minute, what if it is the primary structure? And I'm thinking about a picture that Amanda took while she was on vacation, and I don't remember where she took this picture, but it's a restaurant, and it is clearly built out of shipping containers, and one of them is angled, and we're thinking clearly inside it's stairs to the second level, which is also a shipping container. And then they've got one that they got turned on the end that looks like it's I don't know what it's the coolest looking structure. It's all painted this kind of almost this red.
Staircase.
Pardon?
Enclosed spiral staircase.
Well, but the one that's done doesn't go anywhere, so, but it could be, but it doesn't go anywhere, it just is there, it's almost like it's decorative. But it's they just painted the metal and they attached them all, and again, they're all painted about this color red. And there's a sign on it with a logo, and I just don't remember what the sign says. But again, they can't be complementary if they're the primary structure, so, so again, as an accessory structure for storage purposes, they shall be painted a color complementary to the primary structure and shall have all container markings removed or covered. Damaged or rusty containers shall not be permitted, a building permit is required, and the unit shall not be occupiable or habitable. I guess that's okay, because that's as a storage container. Then it says, as a primary or accessory structure to be occupiable, shipping containers are permitted through the conditional use permit process as outlined in chapter 4.4 conditional use permits, specifically those sections. What we haven't done in that is identified like color or materials, or even that they have to cover up. If it's a primary structure and it's going to be occupiable, we haven't identified the mechanism. So I'm gonna pick on our commenter. She replaces Cafe Cultura with or maybe I won't. Somebody comes in and wants to put in a shipping container. Do we want a standard about what the exterior looks like? It's now a little restaurant, or it's a coffee shop, or it's I don't know what it could be. It could be any number of things. Do we want to define? Do we want it to come in and say, well, I want to buy that Sealand, and I want to buy that Hanjin, and I want to leave those markings on there? Do we want to allow that? Do we care? Do we want it to look? See where I'm headed?
I'd say we would want it to look professional in some sort of nature. We don't want it to look like a bunch of storage containers shoved uptown. I think if they painted it and they made it look like a professional business, then more power to them. But if they're just gonna throw a shipping container up there and leave it as is, we don't want that. We don't want it to look like it didn't have a purpose, that it didn't have thoughts. We want them to go through and make it look
So
like they care.
So again, in that instance, it does require a conditional use permit. So if we go to the conditional use permit standards and say shipping containers can only be repurposed as an occupiable structure in the commercial or industrial use zones. And then as an occupiable structure, they can be cited as either a primary or secondary structure. All citing standards of the underlying use zone are applicable. And then regardless of square footage, it will require a building permit. So do we want to add a standard in there that it shall be is there a design standard we want to apply? Is there a set of design standards we want to apply? So I'm thinking about if we go back into. You know, one of the things that we don't really do in the industrial or commercial zones is say things like. I mean, we don't tell people what color to paint their house either. So how? Glenn, do you have any ideas?
But I think if it, in those industrial zones, if I'm tracking the way this conversation is going, it would then become habitable or occupiable.
Occupiable, if we're talking about occupiable, if we're talking about storage, we've already said you have to paint it. You have, it shall be painted a color complementary to the primary structure and shall have all container markings removed or covered. Now, we could apply the same standard if it's occupiable or habitable as well.
Other than in the instance of the coffee shop, do we want it to match the primary structure on the land? And I don't think she would want that.
No,
Nor would any other independent business that's coming in and putting a secondary structure on a piece of property.
right,
Not one of them is going to want to match.
well,
So
if-
I don't think that it
Yeah.
needs to be the same color as the primary structure, but I think it needs to have thought and look professional. Cause that would be like saying every single one of them food pods needs to be the same color and the same shape and the same everything.
right,
And I don't think that's what any of them would want. Nor is if I see all of them looking the same, none of them are gonna catch my eye and I'm not gonna wanna stop there. I look for the ones that stand out and are different and put that effort into getting me to want to look at them.
okay, we have a comment? Who's the comment from?
Tony, there's only one to look real quick right now, this realistic is put there.
So, public comment is actually closed,
Okay.
so we can't, yeah, there's another opportunity at the city council to, make comment. Okay. I agree, I don't think it should, I mean, I don't think that again, the example we have is we've got a cafe and we've got a coffee shop and they're on the same lot, and I would agree, I don't think they have to look complementary. I think in the industrial and the commercial zone, you should have that ability to do that. I mean, even when you look at, well, usually if it's a strip mall, they all look alike, but they each then have their individual logos or colors or signs, for each
Right.
storefront.
Right, and I get that, you know, and
Yeah.
I get that people want things to look old fashioned, whether it's Western or whether it's whatever. If it looked like it, you know, they put thought into it and it went with a specific theme. And you could tell that there was effort put in and weren't just slapping it there. That's my thing. If they're purposely trying to make it look a certain way, great, I get it, but it needs to have thought, you know?
So if we looked at the conditional use permit criteria and added something there, we could say. And I don't think I would make it number 5, but I'm gonna write it as number 5 here, that, the submittal. And I might rethink this, the submittal for review shall include architectural drawings, architectural or engineered clearly depicting both the interior and exterior facility as proposed, or just the exterior?
Well, when you put up a house, what do you expect them to show for their design?
So when we review for a home, there is a requirement that they submit an architectural, the architectural renderings of the house, all four sides. Cause we have that list of a dozen things and they have to have 5 or 7 of them, 5 of them. So we do that for residential structure. We do not have the same clear requirements. Well,
What about a commercial, you know?
we do
commercial
have
property? So
requirements in commercial use, in the commercial zone. But it has to do with, that's based on the size of the building and then how you articulate the building. How you use different design features on the bottom half versus the top half, how much glazing you show. So we do have those requirements in there. They're just different than a residential requirement.
Right, so
But-
how hard would it be to make that have a similar standard for the container? As in, you're going to show us your design aspect of the business inside and out in the same sense as you would a commercial business going in.
Right, so, on page 12, you can kind of see what those design features are in the commercial zone. So designs of buildings under 20,000 square feet, they have to have a decorative cornice or facade, they have to have a decorative display window, they have to have an entrance canopy. They have to have changes in building color or texture. So we could encourage that they submit a design that invokes those things. They're not gonna be able to do all those things, clearly, because they're not,
Clearly,
they're
not
gonna
big enough.
be, they're gonna be 2,000 square feet at best, probably closer to 1,200 square feet would be my guess, if even that big. So maybe it's about, we understand you can't get all of those, and you only have to get 5 of those, but can you build some of those in?
Right,
Can you reflect that?
right, which to me would say that you took thought into what you were wanting as a business or as a building in order to make it not be a container.
Right. Okay, I'm not quite sure how to write that, but. So the submittal for review shall include architectural or engineered drawings. Indicating. It wouldn't be compliance with, but indicating,
An intent to incorporate
I like that.
at least, at least one of the building requirements.
Can we get to 3?
Or whatever, whatever number everybody agrees on, but at least
Yeah.
saying that they're attempting to make it a
Mhm.
business and not just a container, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm thinking that there's a lot of applications where, again, I'm picking on hopefully our future applicant here. She's gonna have a window, she's gonna put a window in it because it's a drive-up facility, and can you do something intriguing with how you do that window that would create a design feature that would,
Well, and you could easily put a canopy over the window.
you could,
And then, gee, now her customers aren't getting wet and neither is she, so she could easily incorporate that on there.
right,
She could easily do the color or a texture or something on there.
right,
So, I mean, that to me shows an attempt to make it not
mm-hmm,
look like a storage container is just dropped there and being used. Like I said, I am all for the storage containers. I just don't want them to look like a storage container.
So maybe Chair Irons, maybe you have a follow-up question to the person who testified earlier about how they might feel about these design considerations. Since public testimony is closed, you could certainly ask members of the audience follow-up questions.
Okay, Yvonne, comments, thoughts?
I do see what you're saying, in regards to making it planned. I think it does get complicated, because if you're like, oh yeah, my coffee shop's theme is Wild Wild West, and I want a busted shipping container because that's part of the theme. That's where it gets kind of complicated, because it's clearly stated that you cannot have a damaged container, you cannot,
But I think you can paint it to meet those aesthetics.
you can paint dings on it. Instead of buying an actual dinged up one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we could.
But would things like a canopy or the variable paint colors, are those things that
I-
are reasonable to ask?
The paint colors, that one's a little bit hard, cause like she said, I don't think you want them all to look the same. I know not everyone agrees with, you know, color choices, whatever, but even if you were to write neutrals in, like, okay, they need to be painted of neutral color.
Oh, no, I'm not suggesting at all that we would dictate what colors.
Uh-huh,
Just that there should be variable colors within the design. So like, you know, one end of the shipping container is red and the other end is blue, or maybe the top half is purple and the bottom half is pink. I mean, and I'm not advocating for those colors either, I'm just,
yeah,
you know, just again, as the design feature, it talks about changes in building color or texture.
uh-huh,
So it's kind of like you go out in front of this building, this isn't the best building to show that.
so I guess like you would require for it to have two or more colors, how like there's the main and then the trim,
Right,
you know,
Right.
instead of just having a red box.
right, and, but then again, the red box might work too, if there's other things that you've done with it that create that architectural uniqueness. So again, I go back to the picture, I wish I had that picture that Amanda showed me, they literally had a shipping container at 90 degrees. And, you know, the internal picture showed it was a walkway up to the second floor seating area. So how do you do things that are architecturally unique to kind of create that design feature? And again, not every application of a shipping container is gonna be that extravagant. Some are gonna be very simple, but just in the most simple, yeah, I'm thinking of some pictures that when I did my presentation that I included to the council, one of them was kind of almost like a walk-up cafe where it literally had like a sliding door or a drop-down door. I don't remember now exactly, but you know, it was built into that, how it was engineered and designed, and it created kind of a unique architectural feel for the building. And the more of that you do, the more expensive it gets. And I think that's the other piece that we're looking at here, is that this is an available building material at a lower cost because they are excess. So we wouldn't want to create a process that then made them unachievable financially because we require too much. So what is that kind of minimum place that we say, yeah, you gotta build in, you know. And again, most of them will have some kind of a, decorative window hoods or trim, regularly spaced or similarly shaped windows, decorative wall, or security, lighting is a
Lighting would
component.
be huge, I think, yeah.
Yes,
Who wouldn't want a few outside lights,
Lights,
you know?
yes.
So, I mean, you could easily throw in that it has to have the outside lights and it has to have, you know, it has to be painted nicely. I mean, that's at least two that would be achievable, that everybody, as a business owner, I mean, you want lighting there because you want to bring your customers in.
Mhm.
I don't wanna make it difficult, but I want it, you know, to look nice.
Glenn. How many 8-inch penetrations can you have in a building?
How many, what?
How many 8-inch penetrations through that material can you have before you need a permit?
Before you need to have it evaluated by engineer.
Yes,
I'm going on memory now, I think 2. Because the whole premise was ventilation.
Right, anything that is gonna be used in a commercial or industrial setting for occupiable space is gonna have to be engineered. There's just no way around it.
Right.
Yeah.
But you could put in a door, a window, and some holes for conduit to do the electricity without compromising the integrity of the storage unit. That would be
Absolutely.
my, okay.
Okay, So the submittal for review shall include, so again, the fifth item under the conditional use permit criteria, the submittal for review shall include architectural or engineered drawings indicating an intent to incorporate 3 design features. I'm gonna go back to that buildings under 20,000 square feet and kind of look at that list, and maybe we'll put a simpler list where there's six things there and they have to pick 3. What I've written down is outside lights painted, windows / trim, a canopy. Well, okay, I did windows trim. Actually, that could be 2 items. Windows, just a window and then how you trim it. That gets you to 5.
What would you consider this? That's a window and a.
Yep, I would probably count that. It would certainly be 1. I think it could be 2.
Or potentially 3, because if you have the window, you have the trim, and you have the canopy, that would, I mean, that would be 3 aspects right there.
Well, and,
You know.
and where they put a shelf or a counter, if the counter is outside of the structure, I think you could count that too, because it would be an external feature.
Mhm.
So, I'm not sure how to write that, but customer access something, I don't know. I've got 6 things written down. Get to 3 out of the 6, place to start.
I think that would give us a place to start, I mean. Well. Again, it's not like we're saying they have to be perfect, we just want them to not look like
Right.
there wasn't a thought process.
So, and that might be the requirement for the commercial, maybe the industrial is a little bit different, because in an industrial occupiable space, it may or may not be customer facing, so, but again, I don't think we're asking for a whole lot here in this. I mean, even in an industrial setting, outdoor lights painted, a window, trim, customer access those are not. I don't think they're out of line. And we'll find out if
But
they.
in an industrial area, are they using them like that, or are they just sitting there because they're using them as storage?
But if they're only using them as storage, they don't have to go through this process.
True.
So it's when you want to use them, I'm gonna put my workers in there. Now it's occupiable. Now you're gonna have to up the game a little bit.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. I feel good with this. I feel really comfortable with this. And again, your recommendation goes to the council, they get to further the conversation. So if something comes up between now and then, if there's something that they just go, I don't get this, so. Yeah.
Can I mention something? You guys may have been doing this. I kind of got lost. Okay, so we're on the page 12. And
Right.
okay.
Mhm.
And you had the number 1, C1, and it was as an accessory structure for storage purposes. Blah, blah, blah. The last sentence is building permit is required and the unit shall not be occupiable or habitable. Okay, I got that. As a primary or accessory structure, to be occupiable. We already just said that we can't occupy an accessory structure, right?
So again, the first
In little I.
is for storage purposes. The second little I is for occupiable use.
Right.
Yeah.
But we say or accessory, you can't and shall, so we have it shall not be occupiable or habitable in little I, then little double I, we say it can't be, as a primary or accessory structure to be occupiable. An accessory structure can't be occupiable as set forth in little I above, right?
Well, hopefully we haven't got ourselves into something where we get into a circular determination. The intent is, under the first little I, is that we're just approving it for a storage purpose.
Correct.
What we're approving it for.
Yep.
In the second little, in the two I's, we're approving it to be occupiable.
Even if it's an accessory structure.
Yeah, because
Okay.
because think about the school district, or think about a company that has multiple buildings on their site. There is a primary structure. So the school building itself is the primary structure.
Yep.
The trailer that's brought in because they don't have enough classrooms, that would be an accessory structure on that campus.
Right. So then little I, an accessory structure, could be occupiable or habitable.
In the first one,
Yeah, and yeah.
but in little I, it's, they're asking it to be approved only as a storage structure.
Yeah.
It's only for storage.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I'm not understanding your question then.
Okay, so when you go down to as a primary or accessory, double I, as a primary or accessory, you have to have both in double I. Is that the issue? You have to have a primary.
Well,
then if it has an accessory with it.
So if the lot is vacant and the first structure they put on there is a structure constructed out of shipping containers, it's probably the primary structure, or it certainly will be until they come in later and build. Maybe this is their temporary structure. Maybe this is, I don't know what it is, but if it's the first structure they're building, it would be determined to be their primary structure.
Yes.
So for the occupiable space, it could be a primary or an accessory structure.
Okay.
I suppose somebody could argue that they have, okay, so we do have some industrial lots. I'm thinking of down on Eldridge, Juan Bellas, where they have no structure on that. They simply just have trucks and trailers and lighting, and it's fenced. And so maybe they would want to put shipping containers down there, so maybe it wouldn't be an accessory structure. So maybe it's not the second one that's wrong, it's the first one that's wrong. Maybe it should just say as a structure for storage purposes.
Right, because do we have to clarify whether it's a primary or a secondary structure?
Okay, as a structure for storage purposes, they shall be painted a color complementary, blah, 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 blah. In the second one, as a structure to be occupiable, I can take out accessory and primary. As a structure to be occupiable, I can do that. Okay. Yeah, now we've removed the primary and secondary.
Yeah, it just seemed somehow in my head they seemed like at odds with each other. So, okay.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay, that's good. So I'm gonna make those changes throughout the commercial, the industrial, the light industrial. Those I will replicate those changes we just made through all three of those. And then I've got the changes to the conditional use permit criteria. Okay, I think I'm good. This has been fun.
Is there any further discussion by the planner? Okay. I'll accept the motion.
Mike?
I'm sorry, I'm driving, so I can't really read the numbers and whatnot, but I would love to, bring a motion to approve as amended or as discussed. This, but I don't know the numbers because I'm driving.
Okay, so are you attempting to make a motion, Mike? Is that what you're trying to do?
Yes, yes.
So, okay, so you're moving to to forward it to the city council, as amended this evening? I'm gonna assume he is.
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
sorry, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
sorry, it's okay.
Good job,
Reg-
Mike.
What was that, Regna?
I just said, good job.
Okay, because of the limitations in the room, Regna, I'm gonna need to ask you to make the second if you're comfortable with that.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
I second it.
A motion by Mike to move forward the amendment, or to move forward as amended to the city council for final consideration, and a second by Ragnar. Is there any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Sure thing. Commissioner Connell,
Yes,
Commissioner Tenai,
Yes.
Commissioner Layton,
Yes.
and Commissioner, Vice Chair Irons.
Yes.
Hey, the motion did pass. All right.
Okay. Discussion items.
Oh, one thing, Aurelie did figure out the number. I was wrong. She was right. It is $2.99. So I will make that change on the staff report. I gotta find something to show that she told me it was $2.99 or $2.29. Okay. Planning official update. You have my memo, from May 27th. Lots going on, lots to track. I need you to put on your calendars August 26th, which is a Tuesday. It is an extra planning commission meeting. We will be at the Port of Morrow. I will get something out to you guys to get that on your calendars. We
Do we
have
have a time yet? Because I know we talked about it last time.
5 or 5:30.
Okay.
And then in August, we would also have a planning commission here, regular planning commission meeting on the 21st. I have something that came in that is a text amendment, and we kind of had some things going on in the office this week, and I'm just not comfortable sending it off yet. I haven't reviewed it to send it off to DLCD. So I don't think I'm gonna do that, which means it's gonna get delayed a little bit. So we may not have an August 21 meeting. But I may reach out and see if we can pull together something before our usual September date, just to kind of move this proposal along. So, just look for that email or text message and we'll coordinate something, or I'll have Aurelie make some phone calls and reach out to each of you and see if we can find something. I don't want to suggest a date because I don't know. But I do know that August 26th date is solid. Port of Morrow, 5 or 5:30. It is the joint city county workshop, so it'll be you guys, the county planning commission, the city council, and the board of commissioners. I don't need a quorum of anybody, I just need bodies. The consultant will be presenting the draft transportation system plan and that workshop. So you guys will get to see the full-on piece. Should be fun. Once then that will go into the hearings process, probably. That'll be in front of you guys in October, in front of the council in November. And then, the Parks Master Plan, we're gonna, adopt it by resolution, have it come in front of this body. As an input to goal 8, which is our recreation goal. The EOA is moving forward. We've got, a potential, employment lands UGB expansion based on the, EOA. That will happen, some of it city driven, some of it applicant driven. What am I missing? Parks Master Plan, EOA. Comprehensive Plan and Development Code. This change is the first of several that are gonna start coming to you guys, in little bits and pieces. Again, we have a potential application for a request for increase in density in the residential areas. But we also, I've recently learned we are, out of compliance. I thought the threshold was 5,000. The threshold is actually 2,500. We have to add accessory dwelling units to our development code. So we're gonna make some changes relative to accessory dwelling units and probably things along the lines of duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, and multifamily, make some changes about how those would be authorized, as well as adding cottage clusters
So
and.
we can have tiny houses? In a sense?
So accessory dwelling units, are size limited, but they are accessory. So, you have to have a primary dwelling unit to authorize an accessory dwelling unit. I do want to, I also wanna go through the code and I wanna strip out some of those housing size things that are in there. Cities, regularly attempt to. Because under the fair housing laws, if you regulate to how manufactured homes are sited, you have to apply that same regulation to any house. And a lot of communities don't want to authorize single family or single wide manufactured homes on a traditional single family built lot. But single family dwellings or single wide trailers, single wide manufactured homes could be easily deployed in a cottage cluster sitting or in a neighborhood with a higher density standard. So we're gonna start playing around with that a little bit. We'll see where it goes. We'll probably have a conversation before we actually put something in front of you to adopt. But we're gonna start playing around with that a little bit and see where folks are at. You know, what are you open to? What are you concerned about? So you asked, does this mean about tiny homes? What?
Well, because I know in the past, people have wanted tiny homes and haven't been allowed to have them.
Right,
And it has actually made people not live here and not continue to work here because they couldn't have them.
right. Those are, I think, again, Boardman is not unique in this. You know, I work in a lot of little communities and they all say that they want to retain that, 8,000, 7,000 square foot lot because they want to retain the rural nature of their community. And what you just mentioned, Jennifer, is exactly what happens. People are like, I don't want an 8,000 square foot lot. But in Boardman, it's hard to get to something less than an 8,000 square foot lot based on our development code. So if you can't get to something smaller than an 8,000 square foot lot, the cost of development is so much higher between a 5,000 square foot lot and an 8,000 square foot lot. And then there are people who want even something smaller than a 5,000 square foot lot, because if all you want is a tiny home, I guarantee you don't want to take care of the yard that you would be required to take care of on an 8,000 square foot lot. So how do you create those neighborhoods that allow for those smaller homes on those smaller footprints? But in those situations, you probably want to make sure the neighborhood has adequate common space. That pocket park or something in there, so that there's a place for people to walk the dog and, do whatever it may be, so.
Right, because I think currently you can only have a tiny home house in like an RV park. Well, who
Yeah.
wants to have a tiny house in an RV park? A single person that needs a small house just for themselves, they want to have space that is
Yeah.
just theirs.
Yeah. I'm completely on board with that. It's a matter of figuring out how to write the development code to allow those things and do it in such a way that yeah, you know, you wanna make sure the neighborhood remains attractive. And yet, there's a lot of neighborhoods you drive through with 8,000 square foot lots and they're not attractive either.
Right.
So, yeah. I have a lot of questions. I'm not gonna tell you I have all the answers. So. That would do it for my update. So lots going on and just get busy. We're gonna start get ready. We're gonna start getting really busy. There's just gonna be more and more coming your guys' way. You need to go? Okay, so Sam, is there public comment? Just adjourn the meeting.
Okay.
We're good.
Meeting's adjourned.